So there's a natural element to moving through emotions, whether that's from guilt, shame into empowerment, or from, grief and sadness into happiness. But what if you had the tool that can actually help you move through these things with a lot more ease, or maybe even a little faster?
Hello and welcome to my channel where we dive deep into all things healing, transformation, rising into full authenticity. I'm Lexi, a health and embodiment coach, and I'm here to help guide you back home to yourself so you can reclaim your power and create a life anchored in purpose. If you're ready to break free from limitations and rise into your fullest expression, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. And before we jump in, I just wanted to mention that I'm currently offering a free 30-minute embodiment session to help you break past barriers and unlock the most empowered version of yourself. You can go ahead and grab your free session in the description below.
So there's a natural progression to how we process emotions. There's not really necessarily a time frame, but using, for example, somebody who's moving through grief, depending on, the person and the significance of the loss, and how that really played in a role in their day-to-day life and all these other factors. It might take a year, it might take 2 years, it might take 3 years. And along the way, this person might be feeling a lot of ups and downs, probably more downs in the situation. And they might not necessarily know how to navigate this grief and how to bring back their joy, their happiness. And so, what would happen if this person was given the tools and resources they needed to move through and transmute this grief? It would probably happen in a shorter time frame. They would probably experience a lot more ups and downs. And by no means am I saying by learning how to transmute an energy, are you bypassing any of the energy that is coming up with it? But you are moving through it with a lot more purpose and a lot more intention. But instead of just feeling the grief and, feeling those tough emotions come up just to feel them, you're actually feeling them so that you can now heal them. There's a purpose and an intention with it now. And so the reason I bring this up is because embodiment work is quite literally the process of doing something your body already naturally does, but learning how to move through it on your own with more intention and in a much quicker way. And so, using our example of the grieving individual. So, the first portion of embodiment work is emoting. So, really feeling the feels. So, in this portion, this individual might go through that grieving, that sadness. And again, there's really no time cap on that, right? But learning to really recognize what's coming up and allowing yourself to feel and doing that with intention, that's what makes the difference here. A lot of times, people, when they are grieving or they do feel sad, eventually they just get tired of feeling that way and they'll stuff it to the side or they'll do something that makes them happy. And of course, while these are all healthy things that you should take a step away from, feeling that grief and everything else like that, it's also a sum of not feeling with that intention. And we really do want to feel this with the intention of, I'm feeling this so that eventually I can make peace with this emotion, so that I can learn how to live with this emotion until it starts to feel like you're coming to peace and to terms with, in this example, the grief and the sadness. But in your life, maybe it's something else. And so that's the natural part of when we're moving through something. And so when you actually couple it with, you know, the process of embodiment work, learning how to become friends with what you're feeling, even if it feels like the hardest thing in the world, still keeping that intention is what's going to move you closer to happiness. And so now let's talk about the time where maybe this person just finally wakes up one day and says, I'm sick of feeling like this. I am sick of feeling sad. I'm sick of grieving. I want to live my life and I'm ready to go. It might have taken them 5 years to get to this point, might have taken them 5 months. But either way, It was because of all the push and pull between this emotion and between self, between emotion and self, that it finally led to this breakthrough moment where now you're seeing that this is a choice to hold on to this emotion. And now this is the integration process. This is the part where we are saying, I no longer want to feel this way, because we understand that now this is a choice to feel this way. And we are choosing to then feel this way. And in this situation, we're choosing to feel happiness, alive, and grateful, whatever it is. And so that's naturally how it typically looks if we weren't using embodiment work, for example. And so, what would it feel like if we applied embodiment work to this natural progression? What would it then look like if we did that? Because it is similar in a lot of ways, but it's way more intentional, and it really helps nurture the process even further. I will say, with before I move on to this, with the portion of not, that example I used of not, using embodiment work, we skipped a large portion, which is actually healing the energy. Sure, we made the decision. That doesn't mean the energy is gone. And so when we look at what it would look like with using embodiment work, it would look a little bit more like approaching the grief, the sadness, with intention of wanting to make friends with it, learning to be okay with feeling it. And as tough as this example is, I probably could have used a much lighter example. But as tough as it is to feel that grief, that sadness, we are really learning to create a safe space for us to grieve, to feel the sadness, and to really allow ourselves to move through this emotion how it needs to be moved through. Oftentimes it's crying, maybe it's journaling, maybe it's sitting playing a sad song, maybe it's screaming. It's however this emotion wants to be heard. And so we're really sitting with that as long as we need to. I feel this is the most important part of all of the embodiment work, because you cannot get to integration without fully comprehending and understanding the emotion that's at hand. And so if you try to skip through grief, if you try to jump over it, it's going to come back and haunt you. It's going to come back with vengeance. And so that's why the first part is really the intention of really feeling it in its fullest capacity. And you'll know when you're done. You will know when you're done. It's when this emotion finally feels heard, seen, and held, that it will allow you to move on to the second portion, which is embody. So now we invite the body into the conversation. So, what would that look like for this example? Well, maybe we allow the body to move in the area in which it feels that grief, that sadness, or we tap, we use some form of dance or movement. We really just allow our bodies to guide us through this energy. And I find the second part very healing in this process, because the first part is really recognizing the emotion, really giving it full space to feel and heal and be completely seen. But the second part with the body, now we're talking about how can this movement, can my body naturally guide this emotion to healing, to transmuting. And this portion's so beautiful because you really see how your body is capable of healing itself. And so let's just say this grieving individual felt a lot of grief in the heart. Maybe we would see the body move in circles. Maybe the shoulders would move. Maybe we would be doing a lot of shaking. Maybe we were doing a lot of hitting. Maybe there's some built up anger. We would really just allow this emotion to be expressed, but through the body. And so now we're talking about step 3, which is all about that integration piece. So back in the example, I mentioned how this person, naturally got to a point where this was just too much. And now I snap, I'm deciding I'm taking back my freedom, my happiness, my joy, and I'm alive, right? And I mentioned how skipping the step of allowing the body to move through it instead of going through the whole, I felt it, and then I'm done. We skip that part where we allow our body to really move through the emotion and really emote and heal the emotion in a lot of ways. Without that piece of the puzzle, lingering energy could still be there. And now, look, I'm not saying that by any means you do an embodiment session and boom, your grief is gone. Absolutely not. This can take weeks, this can take months, this can take years. It's specifically for this situation. If it's something a lot larger, it can take a long time, but it's the understanding that you're still using this process to allow those layers to be uncovered and the deeper levels of healing to reveal itself. That's where the magic happens. And as long as you're guiding yourself through this process, you will find that healing. But it's going to be on your own time. It's not something you can necessarily force, but it's something you can guide through. And that was the part of which I was saying this is something that can help speed up your healing. It's, again, not something that's going to force you into a timeline that's not for you, but it's helping the natural progression of things to move more smoothly and, yes, oftentimes more quickly. And so the third portion is all about that integration. So, yes, this is the portion where you're saying, I'm done with this and I'm ready for replacing it with a new emotion. So, oftentimes, this does use, depending on the energy in itself. In the situation we're talking about grief, we're allowing that grief to move through our breath. Maybe that's through song, through breath work, but we're really breathing through and out the energy. And oftentimes, what I find myself doing, because everyone does this end portion a lot differently, this is just the portion that we're talking about that is, how can I integrate the wisdom of this energy into my life? And so this portion is done very intuitively. If there's still lingering energy, we're talking now about moving it through the breath, through our voice. Maybe we're journaling, we're writing, we're doing a voice note. We're just moving it through the other form of expression, which is your voice. After we feel we've really been able to move through it, now we're asking, how can we integrate it? What emotions do we want to replace it with? I love to use the example of replacing a bad habit with a good one, right? Like, you maybe, for example, every day after work you have a bag of chips and that's just your routine. But one day you decide you want to quit eating a bag of chips every single day because maybe you want to lose some weight, for example. And so maybe you stop eating it, but now there's this void. There's nothing left there. Now it's you come home from work and there's nothing there. So how likely are you to relapse on eating a bag of chips? Very likely, right? I like to say the best way to help rid a bad habit is to replace it with a good one. So in this situation, I would say, for this grieving person, maybe they're really feeling through that grief and it's like, okay, well, now I feel nothing. What do I want to call in instead? What do I want to feel more in my life now? What is this grief showing me that I want to feel more of now? Maybe it's the gratitude of being alive, or maybe it's finding the courage to continue loving and opening up your heart. But it's only until you feel the depths of that emotion and you've allowed your body to process it and you've used your breath to really move through it, are you able to see the message and the wisdom it carries. And oftentimes we move throughout life without these tools and we completely miss out on all the wisdom that our experiences have given us. And for me, not only has embodiment work helped me move through the situations happening in my life now, it's also helped me move through a lot of things that have happened for me in the past that were never properly dealt with that are still showing up in my body. And so taking a look at, option one versus option two, option one being, going through the natural progression versus option two, going through the natural progression alongside the right tools. Option one gets us where we need to go. It does, but it misses out on a lot. It misses out on an opportunity to fully feel something, to heal and move through it, to see how our bodies can actually help us move through this. And something I want to mention here is this person that was moving through this had no idea where or what they were moving towards. There's no proper intention set with the natural progression of things. It's, I'm in this grief, I'm feeling this grief. I don't know when I'm ever going to stop feeling this grief. And so when we look at option two, we're looking at way more intention. Now I understand that the way through this, there is healing on the other side. So there's a sense of more certainty with option two of having those tools and having those skills. Also, confidence. Like, I feel like in this situation specifically, if I were the one grieving, for example, I would question if I would ever find my spark again or if I would ever find my joy again. And by having these tools, it gives you the confidence and the knowingness that you will get through this, that there is an end way out. And here's how, right? By having a system, by having a process, it allows us to not only move through it with more intention, but move through it with more confidence and understanding that there is an end goal. And so you're not just feeling it to feel like crap. You're feeling it to move through it so that you can feel better and you can be better from it. Because with every single emotion, it's here to teach you something about yourself and about what you love and who you are. And so I really feel like the biggest difference between the two is we're moving from this uncertainty to certainty that we are going to heal, that we are going to get through this. And so the biggest difference between these two are now you have the tools to be able to move through a heavy experience, but knowing there is a sense of certainty and confidence, there's a knowingness that there is a positive outcome. And because now you do have those tools, you're able to move through it quicker. And finally, I would say the biggest key difference here is because you sat with intention, with this energy, now you have gathered the wisdom you need to properly integrate. And what I mean by properly integrate is, for example, going back to the grieving situation, we talked about how, this individual is grieving and now, really sitting with that energy for a long, extended period of time, they recognize how precious life is. And so now they approach life with this zest and this liveliness, and they're not holding back anymore, and there's no more regret. And now they're able to actually embody that energy instead of the grief. But it wouldn't be for that energy hadn't they felt the grief. And so side note, I recognize each emotion we process as a beautiful gift, even the ones that feel dark and scary. Those are typically the ones that allow us to feel more depth on the other spectrum, right? Because if you think about something as heavy as grief, that is a very dense, heavy energy. And if it wasn't for that grief, though, you wouldn't be able to feel those high amounts of joy on the other end of the spectrum. And so it's because of that grief are we able to really fully feel that happiness on the other side. Whereas before, maybe we were operating from like level 4 to like level 8. Now we're operating from level 1 to level 10. But it wouldn't be for level 10 hadn't we felt level 1. And so I'll leave you with this. How different would your life look if you had the proper tools to move through your healing, to move through any challenging situation, knowing you will get yourself to the other side? How would it be different if one day you felt incredibly insecure, but you knew exactly how to move through it and get to the other side to confidence?
And that's a wrap for today's episode. I hope this conversation helped in some way. If you liked this episode, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you're ready to dive deeper, don't forget I'm offering a free embodiment session. You can find the link to book your session as well as find more information for working one-on-one with me and all other helpful links in the description below. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll catch you the next time. Bye for now.